this is Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence. It's James O'Keefe.
Yeah, hi James. How you doing? I'm from the LA Times. Yeah, I wrote that story.
Yeah, I know you sent me a question about accusations of editing or improper editing.
No, all I said you would email saying that Mr. Kirkpatrick said that the video was selectively edited and wanted to know if you wanted to respond.
Yeah, well, I saw on the end of the article it said, in 2013, O'Keefe agreed to pay a $100,000 to settle a lawsuit. I just question, why did you include that in your article?
James, do me a favor. You called me. I picked up. I'm in the middle of something.
Are you aware that the LA Times agreed to settle a lawsuit for $3 million?
I can call you back, but I need to finish what I'm doing. But I will call you back, all right?
All right. Now, right after we made that phone call, Lawrence Darmiento, James called me earlier. I have been told we are not updating the story with Hayden's comments. Therefore, we don't need a response. Please let James know. So since Lawrence Darmiento at the LA Times won't put our response in, I'm going to provide my response here to the general public. First, the irony that the Los Angeles Times had to agree to settle a pay disparity lawsuit for $3 million brought by a multi-ethnic group of journalists who alleged they were paid less than their white male counterparts. Now, in that reporting, the Los Angeles Times wrote, quote, "The two companies have denied the allegations and they did not admit any wrongdoing or violations of state law." Now, what's interesting about that is, in my settlement back in 2013, I did the same. I admitted no wrongdoing or any violation of law. It was a nuisance settlement. This Los Angeles Times reporter selectively edited that context out of this article that was included in the reporting when it happened to them.
RETRACTO, the correction
So since Lawrence Darmiento at the LA Times won't put our response in, I'm going to provide my response here to the general public. The Los Angeles Times article writes, quote, "The conservative activist previously founded Project Veritas, which published undercover videos, but has been criticized for deceptive editing. He calls me a conservative activist. What is conservative about getting Consumer Watchdog, a progressive liberal organization, sent a letter to the California Department of Insurance saying, State Farm is telling you one thing, and an executive in unguarded moments admits another. This is just on Friday. The Consumer Watchdog wrote, "These remarks strongly suggest that policy cancellations are being wielded as a strategic bargaining tool rather than a necessary response to financial risk. This contradicts the impression State Farm sought to convey at the meeting that it would remain in the market if rate relief were granted." This is not a conservative organization. This is not a conservative investigation. This is simply a video of a man in private saying something that the company said differently in the meeting in Sacramento with the insurance commissioner. At the end of this article, Lawrence Darmiento, writing that I was sued in 2013, agreed to pay a $100,000 settlement with a former employee of ACORN who had been depicted in the video a certain way. First, the irony that the Los Angeles Times had to agree to settle a pay disparity lawsuit for $3 million brought by a multi-ethnic group of journalists who alleged they were paid less than their white male counterparts. Now, in that reporting, the Los Angeles Times wrote, quote, "The two companies have denied the allegations and they did not admit any wrongdoing or violations of state law." Now, what's interesting about that is, in my settlement back in 2013, I did the same. I admitted no wrongdoing or any violation of law. It was a nuisance settlement. This Los Angeles Times reporter selectively edited that context out of this article that was included in the reporting when it happened to them. The reporter also failed to include all the various victories over the years we've had in court, including against Steve Wentz for summary judgment, beating lawsuit with union official, love him or hate him, James O'Keefe has been establishing legal precedents throughout the nation, a victory against the union official in California. This is all California statute 632, the very statute I was sued on, an invasion of privacy statute, not a defamation statute, not discriminating against people on the basis of race, Los Angeles Times. Victory in Michigan, fighting a restraining order to prevent us from publishing. These are the sorts of things you journalists at the Los Angeles Times should be cheerleading. You should be supporting me. This is not conservative activism. This is pro-freedom of speech, also known as traditionally liberal activism. And then there was the directed verdict in the North Carolina Shirley Teeter case, where we went all the way to jury verdict, and a federal judge, Martin Reitinger, gavelled the case saying, I'm very concerned about making any ruling that is not only detrimental to the First Amendment, but eviscerates the First Amendment. The judge in that case saying we didn't selectively edit the video in any way that would remove context. But he wasn't the only one. The federal judge in the Steve Wentz case, a judge named G. Kendall Sharp, granted a summary judgment in my favor, arguing although the Wentz video includes select footage from the bar conversation, the edits do not improperly and illegally alter the meaning of Wentz's words or associate him with an unrelated topic or conduct. Notably, many of the alleged defamatory statements made by O'Keefe, both in the Wentz's video, are resuscitations of his own admissions. But don't take federal judges' word for it. Just listen to the New York Times. This is Ombudsman Clark Hoyt, former ombudsman, Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter from the New York Times, who reviewed the entire raw recordings of all the ACORN officials, including the one that sued me for invasion of privacy, and said, the videos were edited, but the most damning words match the transcripts and the audio and do not seem out of context. That's the New York Times talking about whether I doctored video. Mr. Lawrence Darmiento of the Los Angeles Times, I would ask that you update, correct your article to include, and if you don't, you're acting in willful disregard of the truth. You project onto me everything that you are and everything that you do. Even in your own news coverage about the lawsuit against you, which you settled for $3 million, you included the part where you said the Los Angeles Times did not admit any wrongdoing. You need to include that in the lawsuit that I settled. And you also have to include all the other victories that I achieved. Jury verdicts, summary judgments, directed verdicts. You're engaged in precisely the same selective and deceptive editing you accuse me of. It's a disgrace. It's a willful disregard of the truth. And that's why you're going to print a retraction.